Good day. This is Brian Nash from How We Got Here Genealogy, and I want to welcome you to the live stream tonight. I'm sorry I'm running a little late. It's just life got in the way and caused me to be a little late. So if you'd like to let me know where you're watching from, that'd be greatly appreciated. I'm still trying to catch up on a few things here. So I promised you tonight that I'm going to do a live stream, and we're going to talk about we're going to be talking about excuse me. We're going to talk about some common misnomers or common myths about people when they're starting their YouTube channels, or sorry, when they're starting their family tree. Some things that distract people and maybe cause people not to go and not to go and do a new start a family tree or continue an old one. So I'm just trying to adjust some of my cameras here. Just 1 second here. I thought I had that all adjusted. There we go. Okay, so yeah, let's get on with the show. So we're going to talk about a few different myths that go on with people when that sometimes can dissuade people from starting work on their family history. So I wanted to try to address these. So if you're watching live, you feel free to anytime to interrupt me with questions. There'll always be a chance at the end in what I call my last call, where you'll have a chance to that traffic outside tonight is quite loud. So you'll have a chance to ask questions during the last call, but ask them anytime you want to through the chat. If you're watching us on a replay, just put in a comment that you're watching on a replay. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, and if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. So okay, so we're gonna go with start with myth number 1. So if we can start. Okay, so myth number 1 is you need to be a professional to do genealogy. That is not true. While there are different professional designations you can get, you do not need to be a professional or have any specific training. You can become a genealogist by partially just saying you are. But in practice, when you start researching your family tree, you become a genealogist, and a lot of the learning you'll do is through things like this YouTube channel, other resources that you have, and just really general knowledge that you build up over time. There is a few skills you do need to have. you do need to be somebody who is good at research, who enjoys research, enjoys mysteries. There's a lot of skills you have as a genealogist. You're partially a detective sometimes. You're a report writer. You're a researcher. You can analyze. You learn how to analyze photographs and handwriting. Things I never thought I would learn. I've become quite adept at looking at pictures and getting a rough time error estimate by just looking at the clothing that people are wearing. So basically, yeah, you have to have that, curiosity and a desire to definitely want to research. And might I add, you don't, like I said, you do not need to be a professional, but you need to act professionally. Good genealogists are ones that they develop methodology. They ensure that they have their evidence and their records. They're not somebody who just goes and matches names and thinks that you have to, if somebody matches and they sound right, they got to be the right person. There's somebody who has the wisdom to look in a little deeper, make sure that as much information as possible matches. Sometimes when you do this, you do need to jump to conclusions and make assumptions. But it's when you learn to make those assumptions and accept whether those assumptions, there's a basis for it. Just seeing that a person has the name you expect and they're the age you expect does not mean they're necessarily the parent or the person in the family you're expecting to find. One of the things, though, there is a lot of from a lot of genealogical societies, both online and in person, have conferences. Some have training. They put on seminars. It's worthwhile taking in those things. If you haven't participated in RootsTech, it's a great conference. It's a virtual conference, has a lot of information. And WikiTree, in November they have WikiTree Day, and they put on and they've been doing it more often throughout the year, putting on different seminars on different topics. So there's lots of great stuff to learn from there. So let's move on. That's one I hear a lot of time. That it's only old people that really enjoy genealogy. And that can't be farther from the truth. In fact, it's more important for young people today to start looking at genealogy than it probably ever has been before. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of resources there, but I'll give you some of the reasons why it's important for young people to take a liking to genealogy. I find from talking to younger people that I work with or that I socialize with, their knowledge of history in general is not as wide as it once would have been. You would have graduated in the past. You would have graduated from high school knowing a pretty wide base of history, especially you would have been throughout your academic career up to that point. And a lot of that seems to be missing is they try to focus on specific aspects or specific roles that a lot of people don't understand the history of their own country, their own region, their own people. Also, it's good to have those skills to research and understand, because I've been finding more and more often people try to mold history so it fits into our current values, as opposed to seeing how history shaped those values. So it's really important for young people to get involved, and it is quite enjoyable. Um, young people can find um, a lot of interesting information. There's a lot of technology that's now involved in research and genealogy, and social media and other things to share their discoveries. So there's really, it's really not um, as as a thing that older people would generally get into. Um, people want to, young people have the best opportunity because often their parents, their grandparents, and great grandparents are still alive, so they can interview them, they can talk to them, they can get that family history firsthand. And hello, yeah. So how are you doing today? So yeah, so it's really important that young people get an interest in it. It's really important to preserve your family stories, some of your traditions for future generations. And again, with technology nowadays, we have a great way to preserve it better than we have before. I I know there are a lot of young people that are online, um, that are involved in genealogy. There's a lot of them on WikiTree. There's a lot of them in other places as well. You go to genealogy conferences and you'll find young people, um, and it's always exciting because it's really important that young people have a love for history. And really, one way to develop that is to make it personal. Because when you start finding out about your own family, you want to start to find out about the things that happened to them, the events that happened around them. What place did they play in those events, if any? Were they just observers? And if they were, what did they observe? So let's move on. We're going to go move on, and we're going to talk the next one. So the next myth is that DNA can tell you your exact ethnicity breakdown. That's probably the biggest one, and it's one of the ones that's perpetrated the most online. Um, and because people believe that, sometimes that's the extent that they look into genealogy and into any type of genealogical research. Um, as you might have seen in videos I've done, if you've watched them, if not, go back and watch. I have a great playlist on genetic genealogy. I bring up quite often that, remember, these are estimates, and they're, you really, what you need to do is you need to trust your actual research. Just because of the way people groups and stuff have migrated in over the years, it's not always easy to get an accurate picture, especially when you're looking at ancestors from northeastern Europe. Um, and again, it's not going to give you um, a lot of your research within North America, within Australia, um, New Zealand, South Africa, those places. It's going to give you your ethnic background as far as Europe, but it's not going to give you the information of where they might have first came from, uh, when they came from Europe. Where did they live? What communities they were they are part of. You can only get this information by actually doing the research. DNA and genetic genealogy is great for finding matches, and that's what the value is. That's what people need to learn, that the value is in finding those family matches, those cousins, those distant cousins, and figuring out where they're related. And they can help unlock um, a lot of brick walls. They can help you um, discover things you might not have known about your family. Those secrets that lay dormant. So yeah, DNA is just one piece in the genealogy puzzle. It really needs to be combined with your research so you get a complete picture. Um, So we're moving through these pretty quickly. We're going to move on to now. This is a big one. Not always a deterrent for people starting genealogy, but one thing that a lot of people think is true, that it's hard to find information about female ancestors. When you go back to a certain point, it does definitely get harder. For when you're first getting started, when you're looking back for those first 200 years or so, the most difficult thing with finding women over anybody else is you sometimes you're limited on the things. Just you often won't find deeds and wills in women's names, but you'll find them mentioned. The one thing that I've noticed sometimes on some older marriage records, it would give just the father's name and the mother's name, and it would be like Donald and Julie Smith. It wouldn't give Donald Smith and Julie McIsaac or whatever her maiden name was. And again, it depends on the region you're getting those from. Again, every source is different, but that is one thing I've noticed sometimes. So it does make those things a little harder. And going back, some of the censuses from different areas, they only really captured the head of the household's information, and then they captured the number of other people in the household with not their individual information. So sometimes that's a little difficult, but that's again, you wouldn't find sons listed. You just find two males of certain age, certain age brackets, etc., or two females. You listed under the head of the household, as opposed to having the head of the household and seeing all the names that you would see now. Like if we look at 1 second, I just work on something, so I'll bring it up here. Let me see. So I'm just working here, and this is a census, a Canadian census. So this is from 1901, and this is the common way that you would see, and this is for Canada, but I've also seen it for other places as well. When you look at the censuses, you'd have them grouped by family. You'd have the father's name there, and then you'd also have the wife and the children. So you can find those. Again, it won't always give you the information. You won't get the maiden names and stuff, but you wouldn't get that on census because it's just dealing with that family, because it's a picture of a certain moment of time. But as you can see, there's just as much information about everybody here. If there is to be had, it gathers it for every person, no matter their age or their gender. It doesn't have anything different. It has columns that can be filled out for everybody. So that's kind of a big myth. Again, if you go the farther you go back, it is going to be harder to find. Marriage records are always the best because they usually have the bride's name and her maiden name. Sometimes you'll have the mother's and father's name on there, but you won't have the mother's maiden name of the bride, but you won't have the mother's maiden name of the husband either. So there is some difficulty sometimes in that sense. You just kind of have to go back and find the record for the marriage of that couple if you can. So that's myth number 4, that it's hard to find women when you're doing research. I really want to say that does provide unique challenges, but it really is possible. You know, there's creative ways to get around it too when you're finding things. There's a lot of times, even in more modern records, you find people still listed as just Mrs. Donald Smith or whatever, as opposed to Mrs. Dorothy Smith. So you have to you have to try to figure out some of those things and find other sources. Often obituaries are a great source because they'll list the actual first names of children and children's spouses as well. So there's different ways you can find that information. So let's move on. So number 5 is you need to travel to do genealogy. You do not need to travel long distances necessarily. You know, you can't completely just sit in your house, and you can do a lot of it online, but you're going to need to sometimes get up and do it. But it doesn't always necessarily mean that you need to do long distance travel. There's different things that you know, you'll go to the libraries, you'll go to different records places that you might find in your local area. Libraries particularly, they have a lot of information, and often they can get it from other libraries that might be more local, because depending on how the libraries are connected, there's so many great resources now, though, that you do not need to do a lot of travel. In fact, sometimes, even if you're looking for stuff in a different country, you can have access to those records sometimes. Sometimes you might not actually be able to see the physical copy, but you'll be able to see the digital copy. And so you don't need to do it. There's other options too. There's just because of the internet, there's you can find out people that are experts in the region that you're looking. So even if you were to travel, say if you had relatives in a certain part of Germany, if you don't know German and you don't really understand all the records, besides the money you might spend on taking a holiday to the communities where they were from, you're going to be spending a lot of times searching those records, getting that information, and getting it translated anyways. So sometimes you can hire somebody online that's in that area that has those expertise in that particular area of genealogy in the world, that can get those records and be able to give you the answer. You'll save a lot of money, and then when you actually do want to travel, you'll actually have the information gathered for you, and know where to travel to. You won't be spending your time in dusty archives looking for things. Again, remember, if you're getting value from this, please put a like on this video. It'd be really appreciated, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I do appreciate it. So let's move on. Now, I have to say this next one is going to be a bit of a contradictory diction over because of what I just said, but let's. So there is the myth that all records are online. Some people think they are. Again, there's a lot of them. There's a lot that are there. Often, sometimes you'll find just the indexes. So you can just find that that record exists, but you don't actually get to see a copy of the record and what it entails. There are some great sites that have and great different record depositories online that have complete information. And then there's some that you'll find that will just say John Smith. You can find that he's mentioned there, but you won't be able to find any details that you're looking for. But for your basic records, so your birth, marriage, and death, a lot of those, when they're indexed, they do have that information. And there's a lot of neat tools now, such as there's some AI tools that can actually take that information and you can gather some of that information. They might just have pages of a book that have been scanned, or old newspapers that have been scanned but aren't indexed and organized, so it's not easy to find the information you want. There's some great AI tools now that you can get that information, and it can actually search for mentions of the people's names that you want. It's getting better all the time. Still some difficulty with some of those records with handwriting, even the technology to read and understand that has improved. And as much as you do not need to go, like I said, far afoot, it is good when you do have those opportunities, when you do have those things that are local or easy to get to go and visit the archives in person. Sometimes they'll be able to give you you might have some records online, but they'll have further other records that will be able to help you. And the people there, they're always willing to help. You're talking to them. Anybody I've ever dealt with at any archive or library, they're just a wealth of information. Churches, go and visit churches. A lot of old church records are not online. They're still in written books, or and some are anywhere. I was lucky enough, my own minister, I found out I had a relative, not a ancestor, but somebody who's a descendant of an ancestor. So they're like a cousin. They went to the church that I did in the 1800s, and I've been able to find the actual written records of their baptisms and deaths and marriages in a few different books, and they're just beautifully handwritten. Nicest handwriting I've ever seen. It's so legible. It puts me to shame. But no, it's just I wouldn't be able to find that information online. I could actually find the information because it's been documented elsewhere, but I wouldn't have actually been able to physically see and touch, which is kind of a neat experience, especially when you're looking at some registries and stuff, and it has your ancestor, your relatives' actual signature that you can on the paper that you can feel and you can touch. It's a little different than just looking at a record online as well. And also getting involved in like I said before, your genealogical societies. They're going to have a lot of information to help you improve as a genealogist. And it's going to help you get in touch with people who are having the same struggles you are, who have overcome some of the same struggles you're still having. So it's really important to understand that you do have to get out, like I said, off your chair, your comfy chair, out of your house, and go and find things, because you're not going to find everything online. I'm just realizing there, for those people who don't know, I have Parkinson's, so I forgot to take my pills about 45 minutes ago. So, yeah. So those are those are myths. Those are things that keep people sometimes from getting started, or they kind of hold people back once they get started. They feel that, oh well, they need to really they need to go someplace to get in more information. You don't. Often too, I mentioned about hiring somebody in other places. Often you can find people that are willing to help you from those other places, just other genealogists and family historians, just because they enjoy doing it. Because it's something, whether you're old or young, you can you do get a joy in solving those mysteries, becoming a bit of a detective. So yeah, often those things you'll find, you don't need to hire somebody. You can just, if you go online and you find some local genealogical organizations and you ask some questions, make some contacts there, you might be able to find people that would be willing to help you without a charge. Always offer to pay, because often there are costs. If nothing else, offer to pay any costs they might entail. Like, try to get an idea what those might be in beforehand, but just often cost and getting reproductions of material, especially things that aren't online often, because you might be the first person to get that. But you'll find people are willing to help you, and that goes with the people, the archives in different places. They're willing to help you and actually search for that information for you sometimes. And I've even had one archivist go and digitize a recording for me, a long recording of my great grandmother, because it was something they had in archives on old reel-to-reel recording and audio recording, and they were nice enough to take the time and digitize that for me, which was really appreciated. It doesn't really hurt to ask. You know what? No matter where you are, you don't need to get discouraged by those myths, those things that aren't true. That even if there's a little bit of truth to them, then they can really be overcome. Don't get discouraged. You get your DNA back and you're completely, the ethnicity estimate's really off, and you're like wondering, how the heck did I get Spanish? I have 20% Spanish. How's that? Or I have 20% German, or and you thought your family was all from Holland. Sometimes there's explanations. Sometimes it's accurate. Sometimes it's not. It's only through the research that you'll be able to find and make it and find out if it's accurate. And sometimes that will lead you to certain down certain avenues, which you might find information you haven't found before. Yeah, I really want people to use all the resources that are available, and there's so much. Anyways, I want to thank everybody for watching. Right now, what I'm going to do before I sign off, because I still got some time I want to talk to you guys about. I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to go into our last call. Since this is a happy hour, it is the last call for questions. And so, as any good old bar would do, they would first ring their bell.
Last call! Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I need to announce it's last call at the bar. Oh.
Okay, so it's your last chance to drop a question in the chat. If you have a question about anything I talked about today or any other subject, or if you have a brick wall you need help with, feel free to ask. And I also want to remind you on this video and on every video that I have, you'll see there's a ask your question in the actual in the video description. If you, if you hit the see more, it's usually, I'll show you here. So if you look right in here, so usually around this part here, you'll see it really obvious. There's these little emojis that I have. And there's usually a link, and the link on this form, it goes to a form I look at regularly. If I look for questions to see if there's things that people want to ask, I use those questions in deciding on video content or for the future, or when I'm looking for subjects for live streams. So there's always that spot there that you can ask your questions. Again, I want to thank you guys all for watching today, whether you watched it live or you dropping in and watching it afterwards on the replay. I really appreciate it. And thank you for joining us. And, you know, I want you to keep searching for those ancestors. Again, anytime you have a question, you need some help, let me know, and I'll try to lend a hand.
Things change. Farewell, farewell, my friend. Things change. Farewell, my friend. Farewells, they're not forever. They mean I'll miss you till we meet again. Things change. Farewell, farewell, my friend.